Hello, I'm Keith Spera from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Welcome to Let's Talk. One day in August 2007, an aspiring musician named David Shaw, newly arrived in New Orleans from Ohio, was sitting on his Birch Street porch, strumming an acoustic guitar and singing. A guitarist named Zach Feinberg happened to ride by on his bicycle, stopped, and introduced himself. That chance encounter was the genesis of the Revivalists, the most successful rock band to break out of New Orleans in years. They've sold out the 9,000-seat Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado, filled New York's Radio City Music Hall, opened for the Rolling Stones, and hung out with Willie Nelson. They'll spend much of 2023 on the road promoting their new album, Pour It Out Into the Night. David Shaw joins me today to talk about that album and more. David, thank you for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
So you guys have done a lot of cool things, as I mentioned in the intro. A recent one was you guys played at Bonnaroo, the big festival in Tennessee, a couple of bands ahead of the Foo Fighters in front of a massive crowd. Woo! How was that?
I mean, it's incredible. Bonnaroo is just like, you know, it's got some ties to New Orleans, so it feels like that. You know, it's a music festival. You know, the emphasis on music.
Right.
You know, it was amazing. I think people come there to see bands, you know, rip it, you know, and that's what the bands were doing. We got to see Paramore, we got to see the Foo Fighters, we got to see some of the Pixies, and we played one of the funnest shows of our career. So it was a really great time on the farm. What
made it so fun? What about that gig stood out? Like, what makes it a special gig for you guys?
The crowd is such a huge part, I think, of our show and the energy that we get from them. Mm-hmm. And when it's a crowd like that, you know, like a Jazz Fest crowd, it takes us to another level that I don't necessarily, we strive to get to, you know, but it doesn't always happen. And I'm happy that it happened at Bonnaroo.
And it was, I mean, in the tens of thousands, that particular crowd, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
30 or 40,
30, 40. I don't really know, but it was, you couldn't see past the people, you know? It was like just a sea.
Now, I've heard other singers and musicians say that sometimes a crowd that vast is actually easier to play for than a smaller crowd because you're not picking out individual people, you're just looking at this one vast thing out there and it becomes more abstract. Is that true for you? I mean, is that your experience?
Oh man, it's interesting. It's weird. I was telling somebody about this the other day. It's like, I get more nerves when I'm playing for 50 people, 100 people. I don't know what that is all about. I think it's more just like maybe there's like more intimacy or something there, but like when it's a crowd like that, it's just this like really special life force energy or something that I tap into. Not that I don't in that, you know, in those intimate spaces, but it's just a little more, I don't know, it's just different. I'm still working that out.
Yeah, we all are relatively new at it. You've told me before, playing at Red Rocks, which for those who don't know, it's a natural amphitheater outside of Denver, up in the hills. On the side of it are these two massive sandstone cruise ship-sized rocks. Basically, they're the biggest cruise ships, two big sandstone rocks that frame it, and the stage is at essentially the bottom of the hill. So the audience is up, you're looking out up above you. But I think you said when the lights are down there, you can't see the audience at all, right?
It can be strange. It can be strange if the lighting person doesn't light the crowd up. It really is, you're like looking out into the black abyss. And I've played a couple shows there where I'm like, how is this even possible? It doesn't even. It's like, what is going on? And then they light them up, and it's like, oh my God, we're back.
Right, humans.
You know, yeah, we're back. But yeah, it's one of the most amazing places to play absolutely ever, I think, you know, that we've ever played for sure. But yeah, that's an interesting thing, you know.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, if that facility exists like that, natural amphitheater, it's become kind of a summer tradition for you guys to play there every summer now, basically. And so that's what a great thing to have. Bonnaroo show went great. You had a rougher time at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival this past year.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, you guys were supposed to play right ahead of Ed Sheeran on the main stage, 2023 Jazz Fest. A couple hours before the show, the announcement comes that you guys weren't going to perform. You had to cancel the last minute. Walk us through what happened with you.
Absolutely. So I was feeling a little something the night before we had a show at the Fillmore, and I was just kind of like, throat felt hoarse. It just felt off, a little inflamed. It felt like, like when I swallowed, it just felt like there was something there, like not good. Took some ibuprofen, warmed up, as good as I possibly could. Sang a 2-hour show
at the Fillmore. Yeah.
At the Fillmore. But as I was going, it was progressively getting worse by the end of the show, and I was basically down, almost damn near down an entire key at that point. And I get off stage, and our drummer Andrew was in the backstage area, and he heard me talk, and he was like, "Oh boy," and we were both kind of like, "Oh, okay," hope this doesn't, continue into tomorrow. I wake up
Saturday morning, Jazz Fest.
Wake up Saturday morning,
yep.
ready to go, and I had nothing, it was so swollen, it was just inflamed. And I was doing all the things that a singer would normally do to like okay, we've got an issue here, let's try to relieve some of this tension, let's do this exercise, let's get these, all of the things to relieve tension and to kind of calm down the vocal cords and line them up in a way that would, make me be able to get through the show. Because at that point I knew it was like, this is not going to be this is not going to be me, it's going to be a version of me, but maybe I can get through it and it, won't be so bad and I won't hurt myself or whatever,
Right.
And I just, for hours, I was just like slowly, getting it up there, and there was a point in time there, like kind of, because like, it's like I'm trying to get, the reason that we had to cancel like so late into it, because I'm like, no, I need a little more time, like let me like try to like get it there.
Right.
And they're like, yo, like we've got to make a decision. I'm like, hold on, just give me 10 more minutes, give me 15 more minutes, It was like killing me, and
at some point.
At a certain point, like my wife, Sam, had to just kind of come in the room and be like, David, like, I know that you want to do this, but it's not happening.
Yeah.
I was like so just like in it, like, oh God, I gotta do this. Okay, no, this is a Jazz Fest. You don't cancel a Jazz Fest.
Right. Right.
But at a certain point, I just had to get real with myself and go, yeah, like I can't sing any of the songs. Because all of the tunes, most of the songs that we have it's not me in this range. It's up another octave, and sometimes even up in the other range where I had no even business being up there.
Right. Wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah, I could do a Johnny Cash set. I could have done that,
Right. Get your baritone out.
Yeah, get my baritone out, but yeah. So that was, it was an infection. It was some other things that had been kind of creeping for a while that I didn't realize was going on. I didn't know that there was a thing called silent reflux. If you're a singer out there, watch out for silent reflux. Basically, the symptoms are no symptoms other than your voice is hoarse. So anybody who uses their voice and you're like, why is my voice hoarse all the time? I haven't done anything,
Yeah.
So
silent reflux.
Silent reflux, look out.
So it was a combination of things all coming to a head.
All coming to a head.
Inopportune time.
At a very inopportune time. Yeah.
So you never did actually make it out to the fairgrounds at all that day then? You were dealing with that at home. You're trying to get it back together at home, trying to get it.
Yeah.
So did you call, how did you break the news to the bandmates, or did you call a manager and have them call?
Yeah, I called my manager Morgan and was like, man, I'm devastated, I'm sorry. This is where we're at. What do we do?
And so that's when the call was made.
That's when the call was made.
The things were scrambled. Yeah, and obviously, hugely disappointed because Jazz Fest is one of you guys' big triumphant gigs of the year. I think your bandmates, everybody had family members in. It was like a whole thing. It was like, oh my gosh. Well, I remember I was out at the fairgrounds, obviously, that day, and I started getting whispers that this was happening. I'm like, really? Like, what's going on? And so, like, then, like, all kinds of rumors are flying and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like...
Yeah, he went out and he got the brown bottle flu. I'm like...
The brown bottle flu.
It's just, like, so far from the truth, yeah.
No, you've put that little box away.
Exactly.
That box, yes, there's no more brown bottle flu.
No, none of that.
Yes,
none of
yes,
that.
Yes. No, this was strictly a this thing. But fortunately, it recovered during the week, and you were able to play the second weekend of Jazz Fest with your solo band.
I was.
And you brought out the Revivalists.
People were talking about that too, like, oh, he can do his solo band, but you know, what are you gonna do? I mean, like, I certainly wasn't gonna cancel that.
No. And you brought out your fellow members of the Revivalists, and you guys did Kid, the first single from the new record.
Yeah, and it felt amazing. That was one of, honestly, it was like, felt really good to do that, but like, it was crazy because like, the sky just opened up and it just started dumping rain as soon as we started playing, and it was like this moment. It was such a moment, you know, like when it's raining at Jazz Fest, like, you know, and the people are out there, everyone just has this extra energy to like, we're in it, we're here, we're not going anywhere.
Right.
So.
Right. And that was what that moment, because it represented,
it represented
a triumphant moment from making up for last week, a little taste of it, and so there was a lot going on. It was. I'm glad I was there to see it. It was a really neat part of the set.
Thanks for being out there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. When we mentioned Kid, it is from the new record, Pour It Out Into the Night. Tell me about this record. You guys recorded a lot of it in Vermont in the dead of winter.
Yeah.
Why? Why would you do that? Why would you go to an ice box?
We're insane.
To make a record.
I mean, I have been doing a lot of cold plunges lately, but that wasn't the reason. So the guy who produced it with us, Rich Costi, he was in LA for a long time. He was Rick Rubin's engineer for many years. He kind of got out of doing that. He started producing on his own. He's produced some of our favorite bands, Muse, Audioslave, Interpol, Death Cab for Cutie, you know, the list goes on. And he had just recently moved back to Vermont, Guilford, Vermont, which was his hometown, and there just happens to be this state-of-the-art studio 15 minutes from his house. So
in the recording hub known as Guilford, Vermont.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, who knew?
Exactly.
The Nashville of the North.
Exactly, exactly. So we're like, he's like was really pushing for that, and we're like, you know what? All right, like if you're comfortable, if this is where you're comfortable in getting the sounds that you know you can get, and you know, we'll trust you. You know, we got you. You know, we'll come out there in the dead of winter, and you know, -4 degrees. But honestly, it was a really, really great decision because we were removed from any kind of distraction.
Yep.
There was this really like magical, enchanting walk that we would do through the forest to the studio every day. It was like 0.9 miles, so it wasn't like crazy, but like you're like walking. I mean, and it had just snowed, so it was just like, and it was not a small snow. It was like, you know, inches, like 8-10 inches. So like all the trees had this, you know, I mean, it was like winter wonderland.
Yeah.
It felt really great, you know, because like when it's cold and there's no snow and it's just gray, all right, I don't want to do that. But if everything is, you know, there's snow and it just feels very festive. It felt like, okay, this is a really special place. Also, I realized that Vermont is a really, really special place. Never had been there. Really special energy there. I think the people are just, you know, my kind of people. Like it felt really good to be there. Yeah.
So, well, yeah, because you grew up in Ohio, so I mean, you're not unaccustomed to snow. I mean,
no, exactly.
But seeing it out in the woods, I mean, it was a really special setting, and the studio itself was incredible, state of the art. And the guy who ran it is like such a special guy. He's like the guy who's like also fixing all of the gear and fixing all the amps, fixing all the stuff. So like just a really special person, and yeah, we're really, really happy to have done it there. And then we finished it up here. In summer, probably.
In summer, exactly. So we had the two extremes.
The temperature extreme between the making of the album was probably
very
80 or 90 or 100 degrees. Probably.
Exactly.
Did you notice a difference between the stuff you did in the cold and the stuff you did in the heat and humidity? Does it have?
I will say that. Let's see here. You know, I think we did a lot of the background vocals we did here, and you know, I think singers like it. You know, it was hot and humid, and that's good for the vocal cords. So maybe that crept in there a little bit.
Okay. The first single, "Kid," did really well. Has done really well. You know, when you come up with a song like that, I mean, is it obvious that it's going to be a hit? Like, same thing with "Wish I Knew You." You know, the big hit. I mean, do you know when you guys first record, like, oh yeah, this one's going to be played on the radio quite a bit?
We knew we had something special, but as far as like, you know, going, because like, you know, it's hard to tell. Sometimes you can tell. We just knew that it meant a lot to us, because one of the things about it was like, it was the first song that Zach and I got together on and started writing after the pandemic. So it was kind of like, it had this like really special energy from the get-go. And you know, it's like we get together all the time and write songs. Some of them never see the light of day, you know, and it was just like, so, to me it was so cool that this is the first song that we started writing together after, you know, such a traumatic, you know, time for so many people.
Yep.
Really weird time for, you know, for many reasons. But it felt like it just felt like a coming home. It felt like all right, we're back, you know.
It felt like a revival.
Exactly.
As if you guys were like revivalists of some sort.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, and I don't know if this is intentional, but I mean, there is, you know, a bit of a theme through a lot of the songs on the record, you know, of coming back and, you know, making the best of a situation. You know, there's How We Move, which has the line about, you know, how can we dance in a world like this, but this is how we do.
Yep.
But we do.
Yep.
We do, which is the message being, yeah, things are messed up, but you do the best you can. And
you got to find the silver lining in any situation, because they're there. They might be. You might have to get a little dirty. You might have to get down in the dirt.
Have to get down in the dirt. Yes, yes. Quote another one. But yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, the pandemic certainly bore that out. I mean, you had to, like, I mean, it was a terrible situation. You had to find it. You guys, as a band, were, you know, placed on hold essentially. Couldn't tour, couldn't do any of those sorts of things. You know, and y'all were your career had been going really well at that point, and all of a sudden you got to put it on ice for a while. So it's disconcerting, to say the least. And so I guess this record represents the breathing again, the being able to do it again. You know,
absolutely,
the spirit.
It was 5 years in between records, which is a long time. I think that's a pretty long time in between records.
The song "Good Old Days," one of my favorites on the record.
Thank you.
Same thing. It's talking about how these are the good old days.
Yes.
Which do you mean partly by that one day you look back and be nostalgic, like, oh, you know, that time was so great when I was, you know, in my 30s or whatever, and that was great, but you should appreciate it now. Is that the message?
That's the sentiment. It's just appreciate it now, because there's always a little bit of that, you know, always a little bit of that, you know, and that's one of those tunes that just really kind of drives home a central message of the album, which is, you know, we always try to put a little bit of hope in there, you know, a little bit of that. Some of the songs, you know, deal with, you know, some pretty heavy, you know, situations, but like I said, there's that theme of just hope and, like, kid, living for the spirit now, be present. And I think that, honestly, that's one of the things that kind of came out of the pandemic for me personally. I think many other people is like, now I had to like sit at home with my thoughts and my feelings and myself, and, you know, reacquaint myself, or really kind of be okay with that, you know, because for so long I was just going and going and going and going and never slowing down. And when you're forced to just stop and be in the moment with yourself, it can be a little scary. It can be a little weird. I think a lot of people, and myself included, that was not necessarily, I wasn't super used to that. You know, so.
Well, yeah, especially the business you're in.
Exactly.
It's all about being in motion and communing with large groups of people and a band on stage. It's all about interaction.
Exactly.
You know, and this is the opposite of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Did you write a lot of the lyrics that are on the record during the pandemic, or was it all after, post-pandemic?
A lot of it, let's see, a lot of it came during the pandemic. Pandemic, Alive, Pandemic, Wait for the Sun was older, When I Got You, Pandemic, Only You, Pandemic. Yeah, Down in the Dirt, that was Zach. He wrote that during the pandemic. Good Old Days was written before the pandemic. Kid, Pandemic. So most of the album was written during that time.
Gotcha.
It was kind of a, it was a bit of a, and definitely the title track, Pour It Out Into the Night, was written as well. It was a bit of a creative explosion, honestly, for me, because of I can't really ride on the road. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't come for whatever reason. So like when we were yanked off, it was like, now I'm like every single day I'm just in the studio because that's all I really have to do. Thankfully, I just finished a studio in the backyard.
So you could work at home.
Yeah, so I could work at home. That was like impeccable timing because it was like finished in like February 28th or something, and then we went on tour, and then we were home on the 13th.
Tour cut short. Yeah, y'all just gone out, and then
exactly
plug got pulled, and you came back home.
Yep.
It's like, okay, well now I'm here. Pour It Out Into the Night, the title track. Tell me a little bit about that song and the decision to make that the title of the album. Tell me what that phrase means to you.
There were times during the pandemic when I wasn't doing so well. Mm. I was, sliding back on some of the things that I had created as pillars in my life, and so I realized this, and I was having trouble, getting back to square one, and getting back to Dave. And so one of the ways that I would, kind of center myself or find my, find me was to go out. Like I'd wake up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., not feeling good. Anxiety, terrible, just like pit in your stomach, just not feeling good. And so I'd go out into the studio and I'd just start singing. And that was one of the ways I would just feel, I would feel better. I would feel, after I did it for an hour or two, I'd feel better and I'd be able to go back to sleep. But that was one of the lines that came out of just like me being out there. So I'm like literally in the moment, I'm like pouring it out into the night, and that was a lyric that just popped into my head.
So it was a literal manifestation.
Yeah, it was a little, exactly.
Of how you were dealing.
Exactly.
Yes, with kind of fighting the backslide.
Exactly.
Into the despair and the abyss, and like, this is how I'm going to work my way back out of it.
Exactly.
Okay. So it has. Yeah. Go ahead.
And I also want to mention that I, had that, and I write with a lot of different people. I don't always just write songs by myself. I write a lot of songs by myself, but we've got some great writers here in New Orleans, and I had been doing some sessions with boyfriend Suze, and I was like, I want to do this song with her. So we wrote that one together, and it's it's a really special song.
With boyfriend, with the rap cabaret performer who is famous for performing at Jazz Fest with the Curlers.
Exactly.
Who is a very good songwriter.
Such an incredible, creative person, and just such a joy to be around.
In those sorts of collaborations, and we've got a couple minutes left here. That's one of the reasons why I think this band has been able to be so productive and so fruitful, is because you've taken advantage of all these connections here in New Orleans with the scene as a whole and the other songwriters. So I don't think that this band, aside from the front porch meeting that I mentioned in the intro, the chance meeting, this band wouldn't be what it is in another city, I don't think. Is that safe to say?
Oh yeah, I don't think so. I think New Orleans was the place for us. It was an incredible incubator. It was an incredible just energy also just in the beginning, and still to this day. It's constantly feeding, its musicians. It's such a amazing place to be. It feels good. Like, you go to other cities, and I'm not, ragging on other cities, but there really, truly is no place like New Orleans. It's a music culture city. It's not a music business city, and you need business, I get it, but for inspiration and you know, just that feeling of, you know, creativity that's just like that ember, that really special little thing. This is the place, you know.
Well, and you guys, you know, you've all put down roots here. I mean, most of you guys, y'all bought houses and gotten married, and a lot of your bandmates have had kids, and so I mean, this is the revival of song. I mean, that's not going to change. It doesn't sound like. You know, so. No.
Feels good. I like it here, you know. We got to do something about this heat, but honestly, I'm getting kind of used to the heat. I've been hanging out in saunas for the past 6 months, and I'm like, I go outside and I'm like, I was just in 160 for like 30 minutes. I'm good.
And that's good for the voice, I'd imagine. Being in those saunas,
it is good. It is good.
That is awesome. No, that's great. Well, man, look, I really enjoy the record. You know, I look forward to seeing you guys at Jazz Fest next year. It'll be cool. Rest that voice ahead of time. Get it all.
Yeah, no. I would say we've also put in the no shows before the big show at Jazz Fest. So I'll be fresh.
You will not be playing the night before Jazz Fest.
I will not be playing the night before Jazz Fest. So.
All right, you heard it here first.
Not happening.
We'll hold you to it. David, this has been great, man. I wish you guys a lot of luck on the road and promoting the record and doing what you guys do. Continued success.
Thanks, man. Always love talking with you.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for being here. All right, I'm Keith Spera. This has been Let's Talk. I'll see you next time.